Pilgrim's Guide to the Camino, and it's by John Brierley. Everybody, almost everybody who's walking the Camino has this same book. And he has some really kind of cool spiritual things in it. But this is a typical page, and this is one of the, besides the beginning of the Camino, one of the places that has a lot of elevation is where you're going up to Osabrera, which I'm going to tell you about in a little bit. And you can see the elevation. They kind of map it out for you. And it tells you it's going to be a strenuous day's walk. This is how far you're going to go. This is what your total distance is going to be. Like the total distance was 18.7 miles. And so we knew at the beginning of the day that was going to look like. But I can remember we hiked and huffed and puffed and we made it to this town and we thought we were at Osabrera. And we were so excited until this group of pilgrims said, no, you're not in Osabrera yet. You're at where we were. I don't even know what that town was. Laguna de Castillo. You still have another mile or 2 miles to go. And so you just keep going. But that's what the guidebook looks like. And so, and Dave is always looking at the guidebook. He cracks me up. I mean, I'm kind of like one of those hikers that's like, it'll all work out. I see a yellow arrow. We're good. And I do that even now. Even last week when we were at the national park. Don't worry. He is like in the book, on the GPS, looking. Really, the Camino is so well marked. It is very difficult to get lost on the Camino. First of all, there's enough people walking in. There are yellow arrows everywhere. If you get turned around, if a local person sees you going the wrong way, they'll stop you. No, you're going the wrong way. They're very helpful. The markings on the left is what you see all the time on the Camino, are just those yellow arrows. On the right is the Francis, where you see this blue and yellow bar, or sometimes the keys. The way of St. Francis is not marked as well as the Camino. And so consequently, we had a guidebook, which the guy who wrote his name's Sandy Brown, and we hated Sandy Brown. A lot of hate you, Sandy Brown. I love you, Sandy Brown. But we would get off track quite a bit on that, and that can be frustrating. You'll see Buen Camino is what you say when you meet up with anybody on the Camino. You say Buen Camino, good walk. In Portuguese, it was Bom Camino, and on the Camino de Francisco or Francesco, we didn't see anybody. We saw 10 people, so just like, hi. No special thing to say. So why do it? The beginning why was just curiosity and can we do it? And this sounds exciting, and I think it would be so fun and so spiritually fulfilling. But now, once we had done a Camino, and to think about doing it again, your why is a little different. First of all, the physical challenge. There is that physical accomplishment of a long-distance pilgrimage that boosts your confidence. And I had already, that's from Italy, and that is actually, I'm not really smiling. I'm learning on camera because we've just gone up this huge hill. But I will say that when you get home from doing something like this, you kind of feel invincible. Like I can physically do anything. And really and truly, you see all ages and physical shape, and even whether they're in good physical condition, you see all kinds of people doing this. And so it is not limited to people who are in incredible shape. We encountered a lot of rain. You get really good at being wet, and we were trying to walk a path that's filled with water. Exotic mud. We had so much mud in Italy. I think, and they kept saying, our May is usually not this rainy. This is the rainiest May in history. It was like it always started raining like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we had like 2 more hours left to hike. And then you're just so exhausted. You got that truly, I was just like so tired. There's spirituality and God moments. There's chances to worship available in every town along the path. That is what's so cool about it. And yes, sometimes there would be churches that would be locked, but for the most part, there was always a church open, a place to worship. And this is just an altar that was just out in the middle of seemingly nowhere. And there's places like that. Walking frees the mind to contemplate, like Dave always says, you can be thinking about one thing in the morning and still be thinking about it by the end of the day. You just have that time to do it. There's long stretches of aloneness, which allow for rosaries and prayers, and of course the beauty of nature. It's just all encompassing. There's statues all along the way. Of course, that's the Virgin Mary and Jesus, but there's all kinds of, just in every town. It's like I used to think to myself, man, in Tulsa, if we had these statues everywhere, it would be so wonderful. This is a picture of St. James at just one of the little churches, and you can kind of see that white spot on his hat. That's his shell that he has. We happen to be walking after Corpus Christi, and so this town had this whole path laid through it, and this is all made with flowers, and so that was very cool. One of the things that you tend to run into things happening, and you weren't expecting spiritual things that are going on that towns are celebrating or doing, and so it catches you, off guard. You're like, wow, we would never have run across this on purpose, for sure. On the Camino, there is a place called the Christi. It's a big cross. And when you visit the cross on the Camino, you'll see people going up to it and bringing objects. People traditionally leave a rock there. Some people pick up a rock and carry it all the way. I had a girl that I worked with at Union who gave me a little rock that she wanted me to take to the Christi for her, and I did. And sometimes there's a letter or a message. The day we were there, it was raining, but it's a very popular. It's just on the way, so everybody usually does leave something. We pass by fences where people put crosses. They've made crosses out of wood, and that's the thing that's I thought was so exciting about the Camino. It was such a spiritual experience. Even though we walked with people that for them it wasn't a spiritual experience, but I don't know how they could do it without not being moved in some way. In O Sagrario, there's a Eucharistic miracle. And I don't think, Dave and I were talking about it, I don't think we knew there was going to be one when we went. And the story is that it's 1300s, it's a cold winter night, a Benedictine monk priest is celebrating Mass. He really wasn't wanting to, but this farmer came, so he had to, and he really didn't believe in the real presence of Christ. And the host changed to flesh, and the wine changed to blood, and was expelled from the chalice, staining the corporal. It is believed that the Lord performed this miracle in order to sustain the little faith of the priests who did not believe in the real presence of Jesus in the Eucharist. And the corporal just stayed there until I read the story. I think there was a queen who went through. It was like, okay, we've got to do something special with this. So that's the actual altar from that church. But to the right of that, and I don't think we can take pictures, they have created a place for that Eucharistic miracle. There was also a Eucharistic miracle in Italy, and I think it was Rome. We were in Rome, we were trying to find it, and we found it, but it's like the church was locked and you couldn't see it. But so that's kind of an exciting thing. In Italy, there were lots of different places where St. Francis had been. This is the beech tree that the story goes that it was a rainstorm and he fell asleep underneath it and he was protected by it, and it's still the same tree. It has never died. That's the story. Of course, there's this tau symbol. When we were in Italy, we were looking for a mass one Sunday and found this little church, and we're sitting there, and all of a sudden they pick up this statue of Mary and they walk out with it, and the people start following them. And this is before Mass, and so we're like, okay. So we start following them, and they do this whole procession through the town till they get to the main, I guess their main, it wasn't really a cathedral, but their main church, and that's where they held Mass. And then after Mass, they processed to the center of town, and a priest was there, and we never really knew what they were celebrating. But it was just so interesting to get caught up in it. And those are those moments I was talking about that you're just not expecting. Pilgrimage friendships are the best, and that is going to happen the best on the Camino. And one of the advantages, there's a lot of disadvantages, but one of the advantages of staying in those albergues, you end up, because everybody's using the same guidebook, you're all staying at the same place usually every night. And so you really do get close to people. I can see young people really loving that. But even though we weren't staying in those albergues or hostels, we still made friends. And this is our French family that we met. Everyone on a pilgrimage has one common goal, and that's to reach Israel or Santiago or Rome or wherever you're going on your pilgrimage. Everybody's going for the same goal. And what that allows you to do is talk to everybody. We had a group of friends on the Portuguese, and it was a single guy from Australia, and he was saying, at home I can never just walk up to a woman and start walking with her and talk to her, and but you can on the Camino because everybody has that same common goal. Pilgrims share route and lodging information, first aid, random advice. People give other people, we call it the Camino magic. I mean, people will help you out, and it's special. Most pilgrims, and like I said, especially on the Camino, hike the stages lined out in John Brier's Camino guidebook. So hiking, you see basically the same people. This family, we had so much fun with, and it was because the men could speak English, because Lord knows we couldn't speak French. But Guy had actually studied in the United States, he'd gone to college there, and then his brother-in-law, John Claude, also knew English really well. The women did not as well, but we did a lot of sign language. But we had a lot of fun with them. And so along the way, we would eat dinner with them, and it was just a really special friendship. On the Portuguese, we met two women from Denmark. And actually, it was two women from Denmark, a guy from Australia, a guy from the Netherlands, and we really, really loved them. And so at the end, I bought us all a shell scarf when we hit Santiago. And then with Facebook, we're still friends with them on Facebook. And it just is special. This was one of the couples we met in Italy. Probably, we actually walked and talked with them, and that happened once in our 2 weeks. So Italy was much more isolating because there weren't very many people walking it. It just is not as popular of a pilgrimage to do. But it was fun to have a couple to talk with, so we took pictures with them. The natural beauty, and believe me, we have tons of just as beautiful places in the United States. But it's just something we all know, something about being in another country that's really exciting. This is actually a picture of when we were in Finisterre, and the sunset was so beautiful, because we were at the end of the world, not really, it felt like that. Go back ahead too much. That's what the walking paths look like. They look like normal paths through any kind of forested area. Sometimes you are walking along a street with cars, some cars. When you get into a town, of course, it's different. But we call it, we were talking about this on our trip we were just on, that when you're in the middle of the forest and the wind blows, it's like nature's air conditioning. It's wonderful. On the left is Italy, and that was, I think that was, I know it's not Trevi because there's a Trevi down, but it's like Tevi. It's a little town, and again, the town is up high and we were down below. And then this is actually when we were walking the Fifth Stair. That's Italy. It's just gorgeous. We always say you have to pay your dues to see the views. So you had to walk, you had to hike to get to see that. Italy was interesting because we had an experience there where we actually got extremely lost. We had taken a path, we were with an Italian lady who just happened to walk out with us, and we thought we were on the right path. And our first clue should have been as we got up into, going through a forest, we're trying to find this waterfall. We're supposed to be on this path, and we're going to see this waterfall. And we started seeing logs that were across, like trees had fallen over the path. Of course, we kept going, we were so going. And then there was a point where we were in trouble. We didn't know where we were. We could hear. We knew we had to be close to where we were supposed to be, but it's like we were on an incline. We were kind of in the middle, and we didn't know what to do. And I think we sat for like 30 minutes. The lady we were with, her husband was waiting at the end. He was waiting for her, so she could call him. She had a reception. She could call him and talk with him in Italian. And we were doing Google Translate, trying to have her ask questions. And I just prayed. I did. I just prayed the whole time. Please, please help us get out of here. And so we finally made the decision that we had to keep on walking. We had to climb over these logs, and that was hard because they were on an incline. And so it was probably very dangerous. But we got out, and we walked out. It was like one of those miracle things. And that was kind of the frustration of the Italy hike, is that you would think you were following the instructions right, and yet you could be wrong. And so we spent a lot of time at first we spent a lot of time with our nose in the guidebook. Then we got smart and started tearing out the pages. And then it was my job to read that, and they call them stages. So you do a stage of that book. It was my job to read about the stage, and then when we would hit certain marker points, I would highlight out what we had done, because we did a lot of, no, this isn't right, back up, So that caused the pilgrimage to Rome not to be spiritual. It was very hard to, you couldn't contemplate. You had to be on your guard the whole time to make sure you didn't get lost. I still think it's a very, very interesting walk to do, but I would always recommend the Camino over it until it gets better. The finish line, and of course, I don't really like my Santiago de Compostela sign, because really the end point for everybody is the cathedral. But I don't know, I was telling somebody that we lost a bunch of pictures, and so we don't have, I have some things about the cathedral, but I don't have pictures of this big courtyard in front of it where all these pilgrims are standing. You may have seen pictures of this, and people are taking pictures, and you're excited, you've made it to the end, and it really is emotional. What I really love about that is that you would see young people with older people that had, it was a really interesting experience where it wasn't about you hung with your own age group. All different age groups were, mingling together, walking together, and really becoming really great friends. This is us at the inn in Rome. It's when we hit Rome. And actually, it was even frustrating then. You couldn't find the pilgrim's office. It wasn't where it was supposed to be. You go in and they're like, yeah, you're here. You didn't even care. You're like, there's nobody there going, yay! So we kind of faked a smile for the camera. But it's still, I mean, we knew we had accomplished what we accomplished, so that made us happy. You may have heard about, I mentioned the thoroughfare, the big Butterfliaria that swings in the cathedral. If you watch the way, they actually show it. And this is from when we saw it. I feel very blessed that I was able to actually see that swing probably 4 total times. We ended up going back to an evening mass and they swung it. What happens, I think, is there are different groups that donate money, and because it's only supposed to happen, I don't know, 1 day a week or whatever, but I think it happens more. So I think I can get it to, see if I can get it to play. I wonder what I'll hit on that. Phil, any suggestions? Right, if I hit, let's see if you, no. Maybe you can, it's a video. And so on the
video with this, I don't know.
On the computer, I think you can tap it and it'll play. Or
I just see the advance to see. Oh.
And I can come down there because I want me to see. Of course, the girl sings. It's a beautiful song. These men are pulling these ropes to make it swing, and it swings, it feels like it swings so close to you. We actually walked with a Mormon family, and we both ended up at the cathedral for this mass at the same time, and they were sitting a few rows in front of us. And I can remember when it was our return, we talked to them and he said, I've never experienced anything like this in my whole life. You know, and it's not just the swinging of the Buddha Femero, but it's the mass, and it was there's just something so amazing about that experience. It definitely needs to be under bucket list. And right now, the cathedral had been under construction on the outside for several years, and now they're doing work on the inside. So I don't know what's happened with that. But okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to stop this part, and we're going to turn the lights on. I'm going to show you my backpack. I'll show you what you bring on the community. And you were going to want me to move the table, right? Let's see. I'm going to turn the lights. Oh, and brought we brought this home. This is one of the symbols of the Camino. So today, I just packed my backpack as if I was leaving tonight to go to the Camino. I almost wore what I would wear on the plane, and I was like, okay, that's lame. I just wear regular clothes. But I have just a pair of identical clothes to what I have in here: a pair of pants, a shirt, my socks, my hiking boots, and my backpack and poles. I didn't bring my poles, but we always hike with them. You saw them in pictures. So this was the backpack that I got from Italy, And as I told you, you kind of pack it with your heavy stuff on the bottom. I'm going to hook my hat in here. I found these little hooks. I'm like, did I straps? I'm like, did I do that when I carried it over? On top is always the raincoat. This is my raincoat from all 3 trips. And you have it on the top because if it starts to rain, you're pulling it out, and then my backpack has a built-in backpack cover, has a built-in rain cover. And so as soon as it starts raining, we would unzip this is where the cover is. You unzip it, you cover it, and you put your rain jacket on, and you keep on moving. You'll see, especially if you're interested in doing Camino, lots of different thoughts on this. There are people who would much rather wear a poncho and cover everything. There are people that, there's all kinds of theories of, you're just going to figure out what's right for you. But this is a Gore-Tex rain jacket, and it worked well for me. And I will say, when we were in Italy, we got completely wetter than I ever got on the Camino, where when we finally got to the place where we were staying, it was a lady's house, and I was sitting outside, and I was taking off my boots. I couldn't even undo my boots because my hands were so cold. It wasn't that cold, but it's raining and you're gripping poles, and Dave's already taken his off. He's in the house, and I'm sitting on her porch, and I'm like, okay, I'm never gonna get my shoes on. I cannot untie my shoes. And she was so sweet. She came out and she untied my shoes for me, and when water just poured out of my boot, and so then and this is what happens on pilgrimages, and this was Italy, and she was fabulous. She washed her clothes. We hung them all out by her fireplace. She had a fire going. Took our insoles out of our shoes, everything. She helped us do that. And then that next morning, we had to leave early because that was like an 18-mile day. So we were leaving. Our goal was to leave her house at 6. So we didn't get to see her again. But she was such a sweet lady. Well, I discovered compression pack. These are all my clothes. We went to Italy for 3 weeks. So this was my clothes for 3 weeks, besides what I had on. I know, it's kind of funny. And today when I was laying it all out, I was like, well, wow, yeah, really. And so what you do is that every night you would undo it all, and then before you left the next morning, you'd have to lay it all out again. But you kind of discover that if you have 2 pair of pants,